everyone. Welcome back to Pharmacy India. So today's lecture is about a preparation of an examination that is MRB pharmacist. This is lecture number 16. And we are going to discuss top 30 questions, 30 MCQs of the chapter ANS, Autonomous Nervous System. How does it act? What is its classification, etc., etc. Things are going to be covered in this lecture. Okay, so let's move towards its question part. Before that, let's see some of the important things, such as if you have not visited Pharmacy India mobile app yet, please do visit Pharmacy India mobile app, because here you find the latest updates. Latest updates. We here provide the test series and many courses. In this app, there are test series and many courses. These test series might be beneficial for your preparation and might boost up your preparation. So I would recommend you to kindly visit Pharmacy India mobile app that you can download from the Play Store. Next, we have our own website. Pharmacy India has its own website whose link is www.pharmacyindia.co.in. What do we find in Pharmacy India website? Here we find latest updates, quiz, job updates, previous year paper, current affairs, subjective blogs, college details. These things are there in Pharmacy India website. Further, if we move, the lecture of this PDF would be provided over Telegram, and every small details, every information is provided through WhatsApp and Telegram group. So so what you can do, you can join us on WhatsApp and Telegram, whose link has been provided in the description box. We have a book, fantastic book, that is MRB Tamil Nadu. This is an objective book, and this book contains approximately 5,000 plus MCQs, 25 model paper, 4 Tamil language eligibility paper, 4 previous year paper, and 50 and 17 online tests as per paper pattern. These are the things which are being covered in this book. This book you can order through various means, such as you can order through Flipkart on cash on delivery basis. You can order from the link provided in the description box, or you can visit the Pharmacy India mobile app, and from there you can avail this offer. We have another book that is known as MRB Tamil Nadu Theory Book. In this theory book, we provide you many subjects, such as pharmaceutics, pharmaceutical chemistry, pharmacognosy, pharmacology, biochemistry and clinical pathology, hospital and clinical pharmacy, etc. These subjects are being covered in this theory book with the good explanations that would help you to understand things in the better way. How can you purchase this book? You can purchase this book through either Flipkart, or you can click on the link given in the description box, or what you can do, you can go to the Pharmacy India mobile app, and from there you can purchase the book. Next, we have another book that is Mission Pharmacist book. This book consists of previous year objective questions. That means 30 previous year objective questions. This is the India's most demanding book, and this book can also be purchased through the various means, Flipkart, description box link, or from the Pharmacy India mobile app. Okay, now let's move to the questions that I have prepared for you. Today we are going to discuss 30 MCQs with the detailed explanation. So I would request you to kindly answer all the questions patiently and listen to its explanation as well. Okay, let's move towards its questions. The fight and flight response is mediated primarily by which division of an autonomous nervous system? And why is its principal neurotransmitter at postganglionic synapses? So we have to find out which of the transmission or which of the system is known as fight and flight. From our childhood, we have studied that fight and flight is the sympathetic one. Okay, so the answer might be either B or D. Sympathetic system is clear. Now, in sympathetic system, you know that two types of receptors, two types of neurotransmitters are present. First one, there are in ganglionic. If we see all the how the neurotransmission takes place, so there are two types of ganglions. First is preganglion, then postganglion comes. So in preganglionic, ACH, that is acetylcholine, is released. Then from postganglion, if we see the sympathetic system, norepinephrine is being released. What we have learned from here, that in sympathetic system, initially from preganglionic synapse, ACH, that is acetylcholine, is released, and from postganglionic synapse, what releases? Norepinephrine is released. Okay, clear? So the answer goes here is option number B. Option number B is correct. So, see, the sympathetic system is responsible for fight and flight in any emergency condition. If for example, if a tiger approaches, then which system will get activated? Sympathetic system will get activated. And from the postganglionic fibers, what would release? Norepinephrine would get released. From preganglionic fiber, if the question would be from what would release from the preganglionic fiber, then our answer would be acetylcholine. Okay, let's move towards the next question, question number 2. The question says, as in contrast to a sympathetic nervous system, the parasympathetic nervous system predominantly uses which neurotransmitter at both preganglionic and postganglionic, and which receptor types are being involved? So the question is, let me explain you in a basic language. The question asks us, I have explained you that in sympathetic system, the preganglionic releases what? Acetylcholine, and the postganglionic one releases norepinephrine. Now, when we come to parasympathetic nervous system, here the pre and post, both the nervous system releases same neurotransmitter, that is acetylcholine. So in preganglionic synapse, no matter whether it is parasympathetic or it is sympathetic, both releases acetylcholine. Where the difference comes? The difference comes in the postganglionic ones. Here, in the postganglionic of sympathetic system releases norepinephrine, and the postganglionic of parasympathetic system releases acetylcholine. So here the question has been asked, in the pre and post, which neurotransmitter has been released by the parasympathetic nervous system? The answer is acetylcholine. Acetylcholine. Okay, now this next part of the question is, which type of receptors are being involved? The receptor that is involved basically in parasympathetic nervous system is for neurotransmission is the muscarinic ones. Muscarinic ones. So the answer goes is option number 2, acetylcholine muscarinic receptors. In parasympathetic, acetylcholine is a neurotransmitter that is used both in preganglionic and postganglionic neuron, and the postganglionic response are being mediated by a receptor that is muscarinic receptor. That is muscarinic receptor. And this muscarinic receptor is the G protein muscarinic receptor. This is G protein muscarinic receptor, that is also known as GPCR receptors. Okay. Parasympathetic nervous system consists of two receptors, we can say that is muscarinic and nicotinic receptors. Now question number 3. The enteric nervous system is often known as second brain due to its ability to operate independently of a central input, secrete catecholamine for mood regulation, control voluntary motor function, primarily mediate endocrine function. So here the correct answer is option 1, that is operate independently of central input. Enteric nervous system. What does this enteric nervous system functions? This function automatically it functions. What it does, it autonomously it regulates all the gastrointestinal motility, secretion, all the functions that is done by enteric system is being done automatically by the system. It communicates, no doubt, it communicates with CNS, but it it independently controls all the function. That's why we say that it is a second brain. Question number 4. Which of the following best describes how ANS contributes to homeostasis? You have to find out why we say why ANS is behaves as a homeostasis, behaves or shows a function of homeostasis. Correct answer is option number B, because it adjusts heart rate, blood pressure, digestion without conscious effect. You know that ANS, it regulates our heartbeat. That means we do not need to control our heartbeat. Okay, it is controlled autonomously. Same goes with blood pressure, digestion. Conscious effort is not required for controlling heartbeat, blood pressure or digestion. But if we see that any muscle contraction, that we can do voluntarily. So here the requirement of autonomous nervous system is not fully dependent. Let's see its explanation. ANS regulates vital function. It regulates vital functions such as heart rate, blood pressure, gastrointestinal activity automatically. This all together maintains the homeostasis without the need for conscious control. Let's move to next question, question number 5. Acetylcholine is synthesized in cholinergic neuron from which precursor? So acetylcholine is synthesized by a precursor, and you have to find out by which precursor it has been synthesized and what is the enzyme that catalyzes its formation. So if we know the synthesis of acetylcholine, we know that choline plus acetyl coenzyme A, these two combine and forms acetylcholine. And the enzyme which helps in formation of this acetylcholine is choline acetyl transferase. Okay, so the answer is choline plus acetylcholine combines in presence of choline acetyl transferase to form acetylcholine. So the answer is option number A. Cholinergic neuron, what it uses? Acetylcholine, which is produced by choline plus acetyl coenzyme A in presence of choline acetyl transferase to form acetylcholine. So what does this choline acetyl transferase do? It transfers the coenzyme A, acetyl group, from acetylcholine to choline. What does this choline acetyl transferase do? It transfers acetyl group which is present in acetylcholine to choline. Okay, so this would result in the formation of acetylcholine. Next question is question number 6. What enzyme is primarily responsible for rapid hydrolysis of acetylcholine in the synaptic cleft, and what is the clinical significance of its inhibition? So you have to find out an enzyme that is responsible for the hydrolysis of acetylcholine. Hydrolysis of acetylcholine, one enzyme is responsible, that is acetylcholine esterase. This acetylcholine esterase, it does the hydrolysis of acetylcholine, and the enzyme or the drug that belongs to organophosphate poisoning, this blocks or inhibits the acetylcholine esterase. Okay. So how does this functions? For example, this is the synaptic cleft. This is a synaptic cleft. Here the acetylcholine has been released, suppose, and this acetylcholine gets degraded by acetylcholine esterase. This acetylcholine esterase rapidly breaks this acetylcholine, and here the function of acetylcholine gets reduced. Now what we use? We inhibit this acetylcholine esterase enzyme. Acetylcholine esterase enzyme inhibition is, you can say an example is organophosphate poisoning. This can be done by an organophosphate poisoning. Inhibition of this acetylcholine, what it will do, it would not further degrade or break acetylcholine. Hence, acetylcholine concentration in the synapse will get increased. And here, if it gets increased, that means cholinergic functions gets increased. Okay, so this what we have came through it is what is the crux of this explanation, that when acetylcholine is being released in the synaptic cleft, it gets break down through acetylcholine esterase. This acetylcholine esterase is being what it does, it breaks the acetylcholine, it decreases the acetylcholine concentration in the synaptic cleft. Now when we inhibit this acetylcholine esterase enzyme through organophosphate poisoning, what it will do, it will inhibit acetylcholine esterase. Finally, acetylcholine breakdown will get reduced, acetylcholine concentration in synaptic cleft will get increased, ultimately acetylcholine function will get increased. Next, let's move to next question. Question number 7. The synthesis of catecholamines such as norepinephrine and epinephrine begins with which amino acid, and what is the rate limiting enzyme in this pathway? So the question is, you have to find out that when we synthesize catecholamines such as norepinephrine and epinephrine, so it begins with a synthesis of it with an amino acid, and that amino acid, what is its name? Its name is tyrosine. And the rate limiting enzyme is, see what happens here, tyrosine, first the answer is option number B here. The tyrosine gets converted into levodopa. Gets converted into levodopa with an enzyme that is known as tyrosine hydroxylase. Tyrosine gets converted into levodopa with the help of an enzyme that is tyrosine hydroxylase. This tyrosine hydroxylase is the rate limiting step or enzyme for this pathway. And the synthesis of these catecholamines begins with an amino acid that is tyrosine. Now this levodopa further gets converted into dopamine, epinephrine, etc. Okay, so we have learned from this question that tyrosine is the precursor from where the synthesis of catecholamine begins, and next that tyrosine hydroxylase is an enzyme that is a rate limiting enzyme. Okay, tyrosine is the precursor for catecholamine synthesis. Okay, now tyrosine hydroxylase is a rate limiting enzyme that converts tyrosine into levodopa, and finally levodopa into dopamine, noradrenaline, or norepinephrine or epinephrine. Next question is question number 8. Which two enzymes are chiefly involved in metabolism of catecholamine, and what is the therapeutic equivalence of their inhibition? So two enzymes that inhibits catecholamine, metabolism of catecholamine, and their therapeutic and this inhibition is beneficial for showing some therapeutic effect. So you have to find out the correct option. The correct answer is option number B, that MAO and COMAT inhibition can enhance neurotransmission level and that can be used, this can be used in Parkinson as well as in other diseases, so let me show you, let me explain you with explanation like how does this function. This is a neurotransmission end, or you can say that a synapse we have made. This is the ganglia, and here what happens, levodopa would get converted into dopamine. Okay, dopamine with the help of dopamine decarboxylase. Till here it is clear. This dopamine gets metabolized with the help of two enzymes, that is MAO and one more MAO-B, you can say MAO-B 2,3-MT and COMT it will get converted into DOMT. So here you can see that with the help of COMT and MAO-B, dopamine is getting metabolized. So its inhibition is being required. Okay, so this inhibition would ultimately help us in curing two of the disease, such as I can say in Parkinson and depression. How? If these two enzymes would get inhibited, what would happen? Dopamine concentration would get increased, and dopamine concentration increase is beneficial for us for treating these disease. Chalo. Let's move to next question, question number 9. A nicotinic receptors are ligand-gated ionic channels that, when activated, primarily mediates. So, nicotinic are ligand-gated. We all know this. When activated, primarily mediate fast excitatory neurotransmitter at neuromuscular junction and autonomic ganglia, or slow modulatory effect in the CNS, inhibition of second messenger cassets, or long-term genomic effect. So the correct answer is option number A, that is fast excitatory neurotransmission at neuromuscular junction and autonomic ganglia. So this nicotinic receptor is basically present at the neuromuscular junctions. Basically, these are ligand-gated. These are the properties of nicotinic receptor that you have to keep in your mind, because the questions on majority of the time comes from this types only. So nicotinic receptors are the ionotropic receptors that quickly opens on ion channels, and it upon binding with acetylcholine, what happens, like here if it is neuromuscular junction, here this nicotinic receptor is present. When acetylcholine comes and binds to this receptor, this ion gated channels or ion channels gets open up. This nicotinic receptors are basically present in the neuromuscular junctions and in autonomic ganglia. Now let's move towards next question, question number 10. Which statement best explains the diversity of effects seen with muscarinic receptor activation? Muscarinic receptor activation, I have told you muscarinic receptors are basically G protein coupled receptors. These G protein coupled receptors are of various types. GPCR are of various types. So first of all, it is a G protein coupled receptor. So the option number B is correct. Okay, option number B is correct. See, G protein coupled receptors, these have multiple signals, pathway, primary messengers, secondary messengers, etc. So you would ask me, ma'am, can you let us recall how many types of GPCR are there and how does it functions? See, GPCR, if we see GPCR alpha S, this primarily have the action on acetyladenylase cyclase. What it does, it activates this the adenylate cyclase enzyme. Its secondary messenger is CAMP. Now, another GPCR is GAI. What it does, same enzyme, first one, it activates or stimulates. Alpha S means it stimulates this enzyme adenylase cyclase. In second one, G alpha I, what it does, it inhibits the same enzyme. It also has a secondary messenger, that is CAMP. Now another GPCR, that is GAQ. What it does, it regulates phospholipase C. What it does, it regulates phospholipase C. And its secondary messenger is IP3 or cytolic calcium. Now, another GPCR is GAO. What it does, it also regulates phospholipase C, and here also secondary messenger is the same. Now you would ask me, what is the difference between each of them? students, for that you have to go in depth. How does this GPCR G protein is different from other, and some and in first one you can see that it stimulates, another one it inhibits. So similar way it functions, and it has a different location. It has diversity because it functions differently. Each of the G protein functions differently. Now let's move towards next question, is question number 11. Question number 11, direct acting parasympathomimetic drug such as pilocarpine exert their effect by. What does pilocarpine do? You have to find out that direct acting parasympathetic drug such as pilocarpine, how does it functions? So as it is direct acting, it would directly stimulate muscarinic receptor. What it will do? It would directly stimulate muscarinic receptor. So this answer, how you can approach this? This is directly from the classification part. If you would see that a cholinergic drug classification, it has been classified into cholinergic agonist, and cholinergic agonist has been bifurcated into further two parts, that is choline esterase, and one more is alkaloid. Choline esterase consists of acetylcholine, methacholine, carbachol, bethanechol. These are the things which these are the drugs that has been included in the choline esterase classification. In alkaloid, there are three drugs basically, that is muscarine, pilocarpine, and one more is there. So these three drugs, I guess it is ericoline. So these three drugs are there in alkaloid class. These drugs directly activates the muscarinic receptor. Therefore, it can be used in glaucoma. Okay. Now, question number 12. In the treatment of myasthenia gravis, when we treat myasthenia gravis, which class of drug is used to increase the synaptic acetylcholine level? By what mechanism? You have to find out the drug that increases synaptic acetylcholine level, and how does it the question asks us. So question number 12, option number D is correct. Option number D is correct. How? It indirectly activates, what it does, indirect acting anti-choline esterase by inhibiting acetylcholine esterase. How does it do? I have explained you that in the neuromuscular junction, if you in the synapses, what happens? Acetylcholine is released and it gets breakdown through an enzyme known as acetylcholine esterase. So if we have to increase the function of acetylcholine esterase, if we have to increase the function of acetylcholine, we have to inhibit its breakdown. And to inhibit its breakdown, what we can do? We can inhibit this enzyme, acetylcholine esterase. So for inhibition, we use different drugs. One of them is neostigmine. It would inhibit acetylcholine esterase. Therefore, its breakdown would get reduced. When its breakdown gets reduced, acetylcholine here will get increased, and increase in acetylcholine in neuromuscular junction would ultimately be beneficial for treating the patients with myasthenia gravis. Okay. Question number 13. Activation of alpha-1 adrenergic receptor in vascular smooth muscle leads predominantly to which physiological response? If you this question asked me that we have to find out activation of alpha-1 adrenergic receptor in vascular smooth muscle, and what would it lead us to? What would be its physiological response? So the correct answer is option number B, vasoconstriction and increased blood pressure. Alpha-1 is basically present in the blood capillaries, you can say, and when it gets activated, it does vascular contraction and increases the blood pressure, because it would show the action of adrenergic system. It would show the action of adrenergic system, and this receptor alpha-1 is present in the blood vessel, so it would show vascular constriction and it would increase ultimately the blood pressure. So alpha 1 adrenergic system when stimulated causes contraction of vascular smooth muscle, which would lead to vasoconstriction. Okay. Question number 14. Beta 2 adrenergic receptors are primarily responsible for which effect in respiratory system? So let me first make you clear where are the beta receptor, how many types of beta receptors are there, and how does where are its locations and how does it functions? Beta receptors, there are basically three types of beta receptor: beta 1, beta 2 and beta 3. Beta 1 basically present in heart and kidney. Heart and kidney. So in adrenergic system, if we go through that, where are the beta receptors present and how many types of beta receptors are there? So there are basically three types of beta receptor: beta 1, beta 2, beta 3, which are present in different regions. So beta 1 receptor, which is present in basically in heart and in kidney. Where? In heart and in kidney. If we go to beta 2 receptor, these are present in different regions such as in lungs, in blood vessels, in GIT, in bladder, bladder of uterus, urinary bladder, sorry, not uterus, it is present in the urinary bladder, in uterus and in the liver. These are the places where the beta 2 receptors are being present. If we go to the beta 3 receptors, it is present in the adipose tissue. It is present in adipose tissue and in the bladder. Bladder for urination. So you would ask me, what are the functions? What functions does beta 3 does when it is present in adipose tissue? In adipose tissue, it basically shows the function of lipolysis. In bladder, it does urination. If we see in heartbeat, it increases the heartbeat. In kidney, it does increases the renin secretion. Renin secretion gets increased. In heart, it increases the heartbeat or cardiac output, if we are more specific. So it is asking us beta 2 adrenergic receptor, what is it primarily responsible to? So if we see in lungs, beta 2 receptor, what it does, it increases the bronchial dilation. It relaxes the bronchioles. What it does, it relaxes the bronchioles such as the respiration would get improved. So question number 14, answer is option number A, bronchial dilation. Beta 2 receptors, primarily what it does, it gets activated, then it relaxes the bronchial smooth muscles, which causes bronchial dilation. Question number 15. Ephedrine is classified as a mixed action sympathomimetic drug. Sympathomimetic drug because it only releases stored norepinephrine, acts solely on beta receptor, both directly stimulates adrenergic receptor and indirectly promotes norepinephrine release. Or option number D is correct, that is exclusively inhibits catecholine reuptake. Answer is option number B. It directly stimulates adrenergic receptor and indirectly promotes norepinephrine release. Therefore, ephedrine, due to this reason, is classified as a mixed action sympathomimetic drug. Okay, so let's see question number 16. What it is asked: a selective beta 1 adrenergic receptor blocker is most likely to be used in which clinical scenario? If we go to beta 1 adrenergic receptor blocker, so beta 1 adrenergic receptor is basically present in two locations. I have told you it is present either in heart or in kidney. In heart, it increases the cardiac output, and in kidney, it increases the renin secretion. So, how does this function, if we block this function of beta 2 adrenergic receptors, how would it clinically affect? So, the correct answer is option number B, hypertension with concurrent cardiac heart failure. We know beta receptors present in heart, it would increase cardiac output. Ultimately, this would be very much dangerous in hypertensive case. So we need to block this receptor so that cardiac output does not get raised up too much. So beta blocker therefore can be used in hypertension and chronic heart failure to reduce the cardiac output. Beta blocker reduces heart rate, myocardial contractibility. It increases the cardiac workload and blood pressure. Question number 17. The concept of intrinsic activity refers to. What does the concept of intrinsic activity refers to? Option number A, the drug's ability to bind to the drug, the maximum effect of the drug to produce once it binds to the receptor, the rate at which drug gets metabolized, or the drug's solubility in plasma. So the correct answer is option number D. Option number B, that is the maximal effect of the drug when it gets bound to the receptor. So what does the drug do? Suppose this is a receptor. Here the drug comes and gets bind up. When this gets bind up, after that it shows its pharmacological action. After various signals goes through the goes and the body reacts accordingly, and pharmacological action is being produced. So this is the intrinsic activity, that the drug would get bound to the receptor, and after binding to the receptor, it would produce a maximum pharmacological action. Intrinsic activity is the measure to which the drug gets bound to the receptor. It initiates the cellular response. Okay. Question number 18. In pharmacology, receptors affinity is best described as. Receptors activity can be best described by which of the following in the pharmacology? So the correct answer is option number A, the strength to which it binds to the receptor. The strength to which it would bind to the receptor, the way it would show its pharmacological action. So affinity refers to binding strength between drug and the receptor. The drug with higher affinity would bind tightly even at lower concentration. If we have a low concentration drug but its affinity is high, then it at lower concentration also it would go and bind to the receptor with more strength. Okay. Let's move to next question, question number 19. Genetic polymorphism in adrenergic receptor can affect drug response by altering drug absorption in GIT, the receptor's structured functional response to endogenous ligands and drugs, only the metabolism of the drug in the liver, or blood-brain barrier permeability exclusively. So 19th answer is option number B, the receptor's structure and functional response to endogenous ligand. So let's see its explanation. Various genes, there are various genes in different persons, correct? So these genes encodes to various androgenic receptors, to various androgenic receptors. There are variations in genes, and this would encode different types of androgenic receptors which would be modified, such as different receptors would be in the sense like some receptors would be of different structures, some would be having different binding affinity, strength. So these are the difference and different types of structure due to the genetic modifications. Question number 20. Histamine released from the mast cell exerts its effect via multiple receptor subtypes. Which receptor subtype is primarily responsible for vasodilation and releases vascular permeability observed in allergic reaction? Here the word allergic reaction has come and histamine release is being asked. So the answer would be H1 receptor. H1 receptor. This is primarily being known for its allergic response. What it does, it causes vasodilation, it increases vascular permeability, it does bronchoconstriction. So in any allergic condition, what happens? H1 receptor gets activated. Okay, now question number 21. Serotonin, which is also known as 5-HT, is involved in multiple physiological processes. Which receptor subtype is primarily implicated in vasoconstriction response of blood vessel? So the correct answer is option number B, 5-HT2. 5-HT2. 5-HT2, what it does after its activation, it does vasoconstriction, because this receptor is present in the vascular bed. In the blood vessel bed, it has been present there. After its activation, it does vasoconstriction. So therefore, it can be used so this receptor can be used for the treatment of various vascular diseases. Question number 22. At the neuromuscular junction, the end plate potential are initiated when acetylcholine binds to which receptor type? Neuromuscular junction, where the word neuromuscular comes, neuromuscular, and acetylcholine comes together, the correct answer would be nicotinic receptor. This nicotinic receptor is an inotropic type receptor. It is present in the neuromuscular junction, and it is present in neuromuscular junction and is especially an SN type, SN subtype. Okay, what does it do? After the acetylcholine gets bound to this receptor, the sodium channel gets open and sodium inflow gets started. This would lead to depolarization and muscle contraction. I'll explain you with a flow chart. So what happens when acetylcholine comes? It binds to neuromuscular junction here, nicotinic receptors, basically NN type nicotinic receptor. What happens? Sodium channel gets open, sodium influx happens, leads to depolarization. This depolarization would cause muscle contraction. Okay. So next question, question number 23. In Lambert-Eaton myasthenia syndrome, the pathology primarily involves autoantibodies against postsynaptic acetylcholine receptor, autoantibodies against presynaptic voltage-gated calcium channel, genetic modification in nicotinic receptor, or option number D is correct, that is excessive acetylcholine esterase activity. So the correct answer is antibodies against presynaptic voltage-gated calcium channels. So this syndrome is an autoimmune disorder. See, it is an autoimmune disorder, and where antibodies target presynaptic voltage-gated calcium channel. It is an autoimmune disorder, and the antibodies target is presynaptic voltage-gated calcium channels. Question number 24. Atropine, a classic anticholinergic drug, exerts its therapeutic effect by is option number A correct? That is enhancing acetylcholine receptor at synapses, blocking muscarinic receptor throughout the body, inhibiting acetylcholine esterase activity, or option number D is correct, that is stimulating nicotinic receptor in the CNS. So question number 24, answer is option number B, blocking muscarinic receptor throughout the body. It blocks muscarinic receptor throughout the body. How? See, atropine. Atropine is a competitive antagonist of what? Muscarinic receptor. Muscarinic receptor competitive antagonist is Atropine. Okay. Now you tell me that it is a competitive antagonist. So it might be having competition with some other neurotransmitter. Please write in the comment section what is the name of that particular neurotransmitter. By blocking this receptor, it decreases parasympathetic activity. It would decrease the action of parasympathetic activity. This decreasing the action of parasympathetic activity would be beneficial for various functions such as bradycardia. Now, question number 25. In Parkinson disease, anticholinergic agents are used. 2. Why are anticholinergic agents are used in Parkinson disease? See, in Parkinson disease, there is disbalance between two hormones, basically, that is dopamine and acetylcholine. Acetylcholine concentration is increased, dopamine concentration is decreased. This situation is known as Parkinson. So what we have to do? We have to decrease the concentration of acetylcholine. For that, we can use anticholinergic agents. Restore the balance between cholinergic and dopaminergic activity in the patient. You can say this would be the clinical treatment for the patient with who is suffering from Parkinson disease. So the correct answer is option number B. Parkinson involves what we have to do. Either we have to increase the dopamine activity, or we have to decrease the acetylcholine activity to keep them both in the balanced state. So the next question is question number 26, in which it has asked that ACE inhibitor, that is also known as angiotensin converting enzyme inhibitor, lowers blood pressure, and how does it functions? It has been asked that how does this ACE inhibitor basically functions to show the action of lowering the blood pressure. So first of all, the correct answer is option number A, that is it inhibits the conversion of angiotensin 1 to angiotensin 2. See, what happens? Angiotensinogen gets converted into angiotensin 1 with the help of renin enzyme. So students, kindly comment that from where this renin is being secreted. Now this angiotensin 1 gets converted into angiotensin 2 with the help of enzyme that is known as angiotensin converting enzyme. This angiotensin converting enzyme converts angiotensin 1 to angiotensin 2. This angiotensin 2 is responsible for vasoconstriction. When you will inhibit this angiotensin converting enzyme, this would ultimately lead that angiotensin 2 will not form. And if angiotensin 2 will not form, vasoconstriction would not happen. Therefore, there would be reduced blood pressure. Okay, so let's move to its explanation. What it's saying, that angiotensin converting enzyme inhibitor blocks the enzyme responsible for converting angiotensin 1 to angiotensin 2, and angiotensin 2 is a potent constrictor, and if this would be blocked, blood pressure would ultimately get lowered up. Question number 27. Hydralase is a direct vasodilator used in hypertension. Its mechanism involves. So correct answer is option number B, direct relaxation of arteriolar smooth muscle via unknown mechanism, possibly involving interference with intracellular calcium metabolism or mobilize its movement, you can say. Hydralase is causes vasodilation. It directly acts on atriolar smooth muscles. What does hydralase do? What you have to remember, that it is a potent vasodilator and it directly acts on the arteriolar smooth muscles. Question number 28. Which property of beta blocker makes them particularly beneficial in patients with ischemic heart disease and hypertension? So correct answer for this is option number C, reduction of myocardial oxygen demand by decreasing heart rate and contractibility. So here beta blocker, it reduces cardiac myocardial oxygen demand by lowering its heart rate. You know, beta blocker, basically beta 1 where it is present in heart. If you block this, it reduces the cardiac output, reduces the heart rate, reduces the contractibility, reduces the blood pressure. Okay, so this was the question it was asked. So that's why for these properties of beta blocker, it is basically advantages. It shows its advantages in diseases such as ischemic heart disease, as it reduces the workload of the heart. Question number 29. Local anesthetic such as lidocaine and bupivacaine works by. How does this local anesthetic works? This local anesthetic works by inhibiting sodium channel, and this, if sodium channel would get inhibited, it would prevent the depolarization of the nerve membranes. Option number B is correct. So local anesthetics blocks voltage gated sodium channel, which would inhibit the initiation and propagation of action potential. Basically depolarization would get prevented, inhibited. Question number 13, last question of this lecture, that is question number 13. Compared to lidocaine, bupivacaine is characterized by. If we compare lidocaine and bupivacaine, what characteristic is different in bupivacaine? So as bupivacaine is a lipophilic, is more lipophilic, lipid solubility, it's high, it is highly lipophilic, therefore it has longer duration of action. It has longer duration of action because bupivacaine is highly lipid soluble. Okay, this was the top 30 questions from this particular chapter, ANS, and I would like you to once again revise the chapter and again solve more MCQs. Apart from this 30, I would like you all to solve more MCQs so that your preparation gets to its final blush up mode. Okay, so all the best for your preparation. Before leaving this lecture, ending this lecture, let me tell you some of the important things. If you are new to Pharmacy India and you don't know that how to download this app, you can download this app through Play Store. What things you will get in Pharmacy India mobile app? You get free test series, and some of the test series are for various particular examinations also. There are various courses, and might be possible that some of the courses or test series might be beneficial for your preparation. We have our own website. That link is www.pharmacyindia.co.in. Here you get latest update, quiz, daily job updates, previous year paper, current affairs, subjective blogs, and college details. The lecture of this, the PDF of this lecture would be provided in the Telegram, and you would have all these small details of any how to fill the registration form, any short notes. These things have been provided or circulated through WhatsApp and Telegram. So I would like you to kindly join our WhatsApp and Telegram link that is provided in the description box. We have a fantastic book that is MRB Tamil Nadu. So, what does this book consist of? This book consists of 5,000 plus MCQs, 25 model paper, 4 Tamil language eligibility paper, 4 previous year paper, 17 online test series. So, these all things have been included in this book. There are various means to order this book. You can order this book through Flipkart, or you can order through the link provided in the description box, or you can also order through the Pharmacy India mobile app. We also have a book that is MRB Tamil Nadu. This book consists, this is a theory book and consists of various subjects, theory. such as pharmaceutics, pharmaceutical chemistry, pharmacognosy, ecology, biochemistry, hospital and clinical pharmacy, etc. These subjects have been covered in this theory book, and this would help you to prepare for your examination better. This book also you can order through Flipkart, through the link provided in the description box, or through our app. Another book is Mission Pharmacist book. This consists of 30 previous year previous year objective questions, previous year papers, and 5 model question papers. And also you can order through Flipkart from the link given in the description box, or through the our mobile app. Okay, so that's all about today's lecture. I would like you to kindly revise all the chapters till now covered and solve its MCQs as much as possible, because solving MCQs would let you know where are your weak points. Thank you so much, students. All the best for your examination. Thank you.